This is the Isle of Man Gran Fondo 2025, held on July the 20th in Ramsey in the Isle of Man. We're at Mooragh Park, which is the start and finish for the event. It's the 5th time that I've ridden the event, about the 10th time that it's been held, I believe, and it's the end of an era because from next year's onwards it's going to become a gravel event. I think as a road event it's probably just become a little bit too much, and the organisers clearly put in an immense amount of work. It's a brilliant event, one that I can thoroughly recommend for the future because I'm quite sure that as a gravel event it will be superb. For the past few years it's been a UCI Gran Fondo World Series event, and I've loved it because of that. I've won the time trial, which isn't being held this year now that it's not part of the World Series. I've won the time trial age category for the past 3 years, and I actually managed to get third overall a couple of years ago, so I've had some success in that. That used to be straight up Snaefell, so it was a mountain climb and it suited me down to the ground. I won my age category in the Fondo itself last year, and I was fairly hopeful of being able to do a repeat this year, but no opportunity. There is an age category prize for this year's event, but it's over 50s, and when you're over 60 that obviously becomes a bit more of a challenge. But I'm still going to give it a go anyway. We'll see how things look. Weather-wise, it's not too bad. So it's fine and dry at the start, with a forecast for rain later. So, just have to see how it goes, really. Big field assembled for the event. Always gets hundreds of riders. For the Gran Fondo itself, there are over 200 riders on the start line. Possibly some, I think, who'd been deterred by the forecast. And it gets, as I say, a quality field as well. So you might be able to see in the shot here, you've got Ruby Oaks in the blue and green towards the left. In a moment when things shift, you'll see Chris Lawless over on the left in the blue, Will Draper in the black, and Tyler Hannay also riding in black. Both very accomplished local riders. You can see Andy Roach on the left there in the white with the very brightly coloured blue and orange bike. So really good field, some quality riders taking part. Andy Bruce is somewhere around here, you'll see him in just a moment. Rider who's done well in the age categories over the years. So a lot of competition in this one, really. It's a steady rollout. The ride heads out to the north from Ramsey. You can't go very far north from Ramsey, but heads out along the coast road. You can see Andy Bruce there in the blue and red with the Benelli shorts on. That's Andy. As I say, he doesn't very often get beaten in his age categories. I have beaten him in the time trial, but beating him in the Fondo itself is very hard, especially when you're as bad a bike handler as I am and you hemorrhage time on the descents. Nervous at the start. It's a long neutralised section and people are sort of trying to get themselves into position, but with a tailwind this year it was there maybe wasn't the same advantage in being up at the front, I don't think. The first bit's fairly long and wide, there's plenty of opportunities to move through the group. Fast start though, you can see there's an immediate injection of pace there and it immediately lines out up at the front, and from experience I would say at the back the gaps are already opening and there's already groups splitting up. You can see here that's Joe Bayfield on the front there. Joe won the over 50s category in the end. Very good quality rider. I used to ride with him in top level events or top level amateur events in the UK back in the 1990s. He's a bit younger than me. Most people are a bit younger than me, often quite a bit younger than me, but he was at his best as I was finishing. You can see here I got sort of washed towards the back at exactly the wrong time, a bit of a schoolboy error really, and so at this stage we're heading out onto narrower roads, and you get a few riders in the middle who are perhaps happy enough to let some of the stronger riders pull away, and gaps immediately start to open and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. This particular section, it's just a sort of little loop out towards the coast, goes up a bit of a climb, but it is extremely narrow, as you can see, and then you loop back in towards Bride again. Very, very hard to position yourself well along there if you're not well positioned at the start of it. And what actually happened was that a group certainly detached itself off of the front. I know Andy Roach was in it, and he was complaining afterwards that he didn't really want to be in that group, and I can certainly understand that. This is now approaching Bride, so I'm sort of washed not towards the back, but I'm certainly in the middle, and I'm certainly aware that there's group gaps that have opened in the middle of this that I'm possibly going to need to close in a moment. So entering Bride Village itself, a little bit twisty still, and then the road opens out, and then of course what happens is that you get all of the scrambling for position at that point. So it all elastics out, as happens in races when you can suddenly go, whether it's out of a corner or out of a narrow stretch like that, and you can kind of see that effect happening, and I'm slow to react. So I'm going to then move around people and chase up. And that kind of carried on as we headed along the coast road, and I was trying to sort of leapfrog through groups and cross splits as they were happening, and it's not really my speciality, this type of riding, I'd have to say. It's lovely riding on the Isle of Man because residents tend to not get upset about things, they come out and watch. Road's only closed for a short time usually in most places, although there are some bits where it must cause some disruption, and people are very good humoured about it, so you can see some of the residents there having a watch and a clap, which is actually really appreciated. It's great to see, but it's also great that you have that community feel to the event. And I have to say, I'm sort of just clinging onto the bars as the pace is injected. Rider coming past there's an interesting one. That's James Potter. You'll see more of him later on. I'm not sure what had happened to him there, but I suspect he just found himself out of position and stuck in the wrong place, and had to work his way through, I presume, when he's coming back through the group now. And like him, I'm trying to sort of gradually work my way up in ones and twos. A few little climbs, helps to just detach a few riders, break it into smaller groups, but it was starting to sort of stabilise by this point. That's a chap by the name of Stephen Valentine in the sort of white and grey. I was talking to him before the start, and he didn't know the route, as obviously always a number of riders don't, and so I was giving him a little bit of warning. This is just turning onto Derby Airfield. Derby Airfield is obviously flat, as airfields are, but it's just a nice little break in things. It's a change of scene. One of the nice things about the Isle of Man Gran Fondo route was that it's got a huge variety. So you've got sort of rolling roads earlier on, then you've got the airfield, which is flat, then you've got the currachs, which you'll see in a moment, which are something else again really, and then you hit the climbs. So it really has got a variety. People think it's just going to be climbing, but it's not. It's a lot more than that. But obviously fast across the airfield, at least in one direction. This bit you're looking at now is the tailwind stretch. The early bit had been headwind, and people were a lot less keen to go to the front there. You can see James Potter there again, who I was talking about. He's on the left there. And there's Stephen Valentine again. And then the queue to get off the airfield, and you always know what's going to happen if there's a queue like that, because of course you get the old elastic effect again as you come off, where the guys at the front are already accelerating away, as me at the back is still picking through the gravel, and so you then get this huge acceleration of pace, and you need to close it all up again. But also people are now thinking at this stage, as we approach Sandygate, about the approach to the currach, and you don't want to be washed away before that, because as you'll see in just a moment, the gaps really do open. That's Matt Butterworth there in the blue, yellow and white. He went on to finish 61st. So a big long string here as you descend away from the airfield. And approaching Sandygate. Just in front of me here in the yellow and red, that's Sean Wheatcroft. You'll see quite a bit more of Sean, mainly going past me on descents, I have to say. He actually finished a few places behind me and a couple of minutes behind me, so we weren't far apart during the entire ride really. On the inside there, number 1013 in the black, that's Stuart Batten, who finished again a little bit down on me, but also did a pretty creditable ride. And here we're approaching the right turn in Sandygate. At that point you then know that you're heading for this stretch of road, which is the last bit of sanity before you hit the Currachs. And everybody knows, I think, what's going to be happening at the Currachs. It's this bit of road isn't that wide, but the Currachs are just incredibly narrow. You can just about get two riders side by side, and that is it. The surface on it, as you'll see in just a moment, is pretty dire. As you approach it along here, it's actually really easy to miss the entrance to the road because it is tiny. I mean, I've seen footpaths with a bigger entrance, a more prominent entrance than this has. It's quite extraordinary. You'll see people indicating here, and they're kind of saying, you know, this is going to be a bit of a change in pace here, and you need to be aware of this turn. So you can see again, you get a bit of a queue going into it, and everybody's very aware that they're going to get pushed out of the way. It's always a dilemma for me. Do I go to the front and really annoy people because I'm so slow on this section, or do I stay at the back and keep out of trouble but then have all the gaps to close? And I ended up with the latter this time, so I was one of the last riders to turn into it. I know the bit of road really well, but I think I'm not sure that knowing it actually helps massively on this one. You just know what you've got coming. As you can see, you've got grass down the middle, you've got significant cracks, you've got significant subsidence, you've got the occasional hole. It's one of the very few places in the Isle of Man where you actually get proper potholes. Not many, I have to say. They do repair them pretty well, especially just before the Fondo, but you do get a few. And you get this huge ramp that you'll see us coming up to just here. It's really quite extraordinary. This little bit here, up we go. It's actually even worse in a car. And so it's quite extraordinary. And of course, once you're committed to one side or the other, you are fairly committed because he said switching line, but there's grass down the middle, so it really is fairly dodgy trying to cross over from one side to the other. And there are places where the road surface has degraded more on one side or the other, so having just said it doesn't help to know the road, it actually in that respect does, because you kind of know where you need to be on one side or the other. There's bits of debris lying in the road. The local authorities do actually clear it up really well in the week before the Fondo. I have to say, when I take my first look at it during my visits to the Isle of Man, usually I'm filled with dread and horror because there's stuff growing out from the side that gets trimmed back, and there's a lot of stuff lying in the middle of the road that gets cleared, and they make a very good job of it. But you can see them bouncing along here. This is where I actually regret having a camera that has such good image stabilisation, because it actually minimises the true horror of the road. So it actually does flatten things out a lot, but all the way along here you're just bouncing basically, so everything is kind of like a blur, and it's actually quite remarkable. Well done DJI, just how well my camera copes with this. Obviously the roads are completely closed for this, and residents do respect it, so there's never any real problem with traffic, but I'm still nervous about going around those corners. I'm nervous about every corner, it's just me. And as you can see, I'm just kind of leaving gaps through those corners here, which I've just got to then close. But at least it means that if someone comes off, and that does happen, or somebody has a tyre blowout, and that does happen, then I've at least got some wiggle room being back here. And I'm not sure that being on a wheel is of quite the same significance that it is in some other places, because you can see from the speed that I'm doing kind of 30 kilometres an hour, but barely that for some of it, so you know, it's not as significant as it was. The inset video here is as they're going past a spot just a bit further up, and you can just see from that just how the gaps have opened so quickly, because this is all the group that I was with at the start, and as you can see now there's an awful lot of daylight between those wheels, and an especially large amount of daylight between me and the other wheels. Anyway, this is me just coming up now, so you'll see me coming past at any second now. And it's slightly nicer at this particular point. There's me coming through the picture now, right on the back in front of the following car with a presumably commissaire in it. So yeah, I'm managing to just about make contact with some of the guys at the back, but what you're getting now is guys at the back who are the ones who are struggling, of course. So now even I'm thinking about going past some, so it's not the place to be, because you're getting washed out the back. I've put the whole thing in here. Sorry if it bores people, same with the rest of the video obviously, but I just want it as a souvenir basically of the ride as it's been over all these years, so I just thought I'm going to have the whole thing in there in its full horror for me anyway. Obviously quite a lot of people really love this. If you're the type of rider who's a good bike handler, who can smash through the dodgy surfaces fearlessly, then this is a real place to take advantage. But you've always also got in the back of your mind that you've got the climb coming up, so you can see on the route profile down at the bottom centre we're getting very close to Drewdale, which is the first big climb and the second hardest climb of the event certainly. And so anybody wanting to make a huge effort at the moment has got to sort of temper that with the prospect of that climb coming up. So you know, on the other hand, if you're not a climber, it's a chance to get a bit of a gap. Anyway, this is Drewdale. I didn't record lowdown because I realised at this point that I'd used far too much of my camera battery, so I only started recording about halfway up. But I basically went through the group, so I ended up right at the front with the front two riders here. This is Colm Coan I'm with here. He went on to finish a couple of places in front of me and a couple of minutes in front of me. Decent ride. And he was, as you can see, laying down some power here. It's a climb where you can really get a gap. The gap you get on this climb is such that you're not going to see people again. You can see the length of it. It actually goes on for about 7 or 8 kilometres in its full length, but it does have that descendy bit in the middle, which is sort of included in that. So, but it's steep as well, and I have to say that was over the steeper bit, that bit that you just saw. So there's James Potter again. He's joined us. He joined us from behind, and just starting to split a bit as we neared the top, sort of a flatter section, as you pass plantation on your left. That's basically Thalty Will plantation towards your left, I believe. Down at the left there is the descent that comes right at the end, which you don't see because the aforementioned camera battery ran out. Anyway, we were just enjoying our gap now and just trying to make the most of it as we came over the top. But I'm aware that I've got that little descendy bit, and you can see what the road's like. It's very narrow, and I'm sorry, I know I'm a broken record here, but anything like this just does for my nerves basically. And as you hit this descent, it's quite bumpy. I should know it's okay actually by now, because although it is a little bit bumpy, it's just it's not like Essex. There's no actual potholes in it, so there are bits that will kind of bump your handlebars, but as long as you hang on tight, you're actually going to be fine. But I went down it as usual, over cautiously. I think my overall time for the full climb was my 3rd fastest that I've ever done on it, and that includes quite a lot of training rides because I love this climb. Which means I should know this descent better, but you can see what I mean about the surface. It's just a bit broken up, but it's okay, you know, it's fine. What you can also see in this, apart from the fact that I'm getting dropped, is that you've got that build up of clouds, so that lovely sunshine that we had earlier on has started to go. As soon as you get up onto the top, you do tend to find that on the Isle of Man. The cloud, as you can see, is hanging down over the hills, but it was definitely starting to cloud up, and there was just the sort of faintest trace of a few spots of rain. See the photograph of me there, and you can see the riders coming up behind, who you're going to see much more of in just a second. Those two riders coming past me, wham, there, and you can see just how slowly I'm going. They're Anthony Jones and Aaron Cooley. Anthony did a fantastic ride. He was 3rd on the podium for the Vets Prize, knocking me off of it. I ended up 4th, and he finished 17th. Aaron finished 16th, so great rides for both those two. and Anthony finished about 5 minutes in front of me, and you can see where he made a lot of those 5 minutes up. Anyway, I then got thoroughly tailed off from the group of riders that was forming at the front, and it took a long chase back to actually re-establish myself. I did it, but I've only shown you a little bit of it here. It's a long grovel, fairly steep in places, and I was having to put down a lot of power. I think it was the late Mark Bell, who's a fantastic rider, obviously. I think it was him that said that in any race, you're like a brick wall, and you only have just so many bricks, and every time you make an effort you knock another brick out of the wall, and I've just knocked about 6 bricks out of my wall, I think, having to close that gap. It's really not a clever thing to do, but you know, I've had to learn to live with it. So here I am, getting myself back on the back again, and closing a gap that only exists because I can't go down hills. Yeah, really frustrating. Beautiful bit of countryside, Drewdale, absolutely stunning. And I believe there are the remains of Iron Age roundhouses up here as well, so it's absolutely steeped in history. Must have been a bleak place to live, I have to say, often in cloud, but stunningly beautiful, as you can see. And that cottage up at the top is on the junction, and you can see that for a long way, and because you're sort of climbing through a kind of a gully on the top of the hill, and as I say, at times it just drops a little bit, like we're just getting here, just a little fleeting bit of drop, and then it pulls up very hard again. Anyway, here we are arriving at it. Believe me, I've foreshortened that a lot, and I'm actually on the front, so from being right on the back through the currachs, I've moved myself up to the front, but I'm now about to lose it all again, because naturally there's a descent coming up, and it actually carries on descending in steps right the way down towards St John's. This descent is nothing like the previous one, and I can't even use the excuse that it's bumpy or narrow, because it's not, it's just fast. And so as you can see, I've already lost my position at the front even before we went over the top, but I'm about to lose it even more spectacularly now. Again, it's a stunning piece of road. You've got Peel Hill towards your left, can't quite see it yet, but you will get glimpses of it in just a moment. And obviously the sea in front, and you can often see the mountains of Moorn, although with the cloud that was building up and the undercast, that wouldn't have been the case on July the 20th, I don't think. I'll be absolutely honest, I wasn't looking. I was too busy gripping my bars and hanging on for grim death and waiting for the next riders to come past me. But this one's a beautiful descent. It does have a couple of little switchback sections which can kind of catch you out, because you're kind of getting used to this bit that I'm on now, where it's just nice sweeping descents, and then you hit the bottom, or say at the bottom, you don't hit the bottom. You get a little bit lower down, and you get this switchback. And when I rode the event, this full distance course last in 2022, the first crash that I actually saw was on this section, and someone had completely failed to take that bend and gone straight over the edge, and it's a long way down, and there was a marshal trying to get down to him at that point. It's not nice. That didn't encourage me any, you can imagine, with my descending. But anyway, you can see the riders all going past me here, and again it's all gaps that I would have had to have closed, but that I didn't, because as I was saying about Aaron and Anthony just now, they finished in front of me, so I was never able to close that. Anyway, view of the sea in front there. A lot of riders would have been going down this at more than 10 kilometres an hour faster than me. This is Little London, which is a horrid little descent. It's about 20%, and this is where I had to scrape somebody out of the river a few years ago, because he'd crashed, having just gone flying past me at the top of the descent. So you can see that was Nicholas Whitley, followed by Sean Wheatcroft. They actually finished together, in fact, or a few seconds apart, about 5 places behind me and about 3 minutes behind me. but as you can see, both considerably braver descenders than me. Over the top of Little London, there's a section where the lanes are really fairly similar to this. They're not quite as lumpy, but they're still fairly twisty and narrow, and occasionally broken up. And then there's a section of better road as you head towards what's actually part of the TT course, albeit in reverse direction, and you head towards Ballacrane and the busy crossroads, which is sort of like a key junction on the island. So by this point I'm completely by myself, so Nicholas and Sean have disappeared off into the distance, and there's a group that's formed in front, certainly, and a group, as it happens, was also forming behind me. When I got to Dolby Climb, which is some way further on, I could see both the groups in front and the group behind, because you can see a considerable distance, and they were both really too far away to consider either being able to get up to the front group or consider stopping and waiting for the group behind. So I was a bit sort of stuck in no man's land, really. So it was a long chase, as you can see along this section. I was stuck by myself and pushing wind really a lot of the time. This is really one of the few flat sections on the middle of the course, and as I say, there are more climbs that come a little bit later on, but this bit's actually really fairly easy. But of course the wind becomes more of a factor then. So this is actually heading up towards Ballacrane Crossroads. Lots of police support needed on this one, evidently. And I must admit I was getting a bit nervous as I was approaching here, because I was watching all the traffic coming through, and the officer very kindly stopped. Fantastic, amazing support from Isle of Man Police, I have to say. So apologies to the drivers who stopped. I hope it wasn't too much of a pain, but it's much appreciated, certainly. This is Nathan Hinks from Manx Viking Wheelers that I'm just passing here. We've moved on quite a long way at this point, so we're now coming out of Crosby on what's actually quite a tough little climb. You can see on the route profile it's nothing compared to the biggies, but you've got Ingebrek coming up, so you're trying to save yourself a bit. You've got 100 kilometres almost in the legs, so your legs are already tired, and this one does drag on quite a long way, and at this particular point it's very steep, and I think riders were starting to suffer at this point. For myself, I'm okay at longer distances, and climbing is really my speciality, so I was sort of enjoying this bit, unlike some of the descents earlier on. Up in front you can then see two jerseys that might be familiar from having seen them previously. That's Nicholas Whitley and Sean Wheatcroft, and I hadn't seen them since they went past me spectacularly on that descent at Little London when I was wimping out, and I've just clawed them back here. All three of those riders came in a few minutes after me. Up in front of these two you'll also see James Potter. Obviously we saw a lot of James earlier on, and he'd done a heroic ride really without knowing the course, I think. So as I went past him, I first of all referred to the state of my legs, and he compared, and I think his were probably worse, to be fair to him. And I said, of course, at least there's no big climbs left to come, and luckily he picked up the sarcasm in my voice, which when you've just done 100 kilometres is no mean feat, and he set 100 hard kilometres as well, and he realised that I was being sarcastic, and he didn't know about Ingebrek. And if you don't know about Ingebrek, it's quite a surprise, I can tell you. And so across all of this section you're kind of holding yourself back just that little bit for that final slog. Well, I say final slog, you have the big climb, and then you have a lovely descent and a short flat run in to Ramsey for the finish. Unfortunately I missed an awful lot of that because my camera battery ran out on the sort of bottom of Ingebrek just as it starts to get steep, but I'll talk you through basically what happened. In the meantime, I'm just going to put some results up here. I'm going to show you first of all the first 10, and then we'll just pause to watch James as I go past him. these are the first 10 over 50s. So that was the bit that was obviously of primary interest to me. So I finished 21st overall, which I was reasonably happy with. Some good riders in there. Chris Lawless was only 15th, although I don't think he had a very easy ride by the sounds of things. And I finished 4th in the over 50s, so I missed the podium by 1 place. And I think it's fair to say that I can put that down to descending. I think you'll probably agree with me on that one. But anyway, I was reasonably happy with that. We're now on the gravel up towards Inchbreck, past the Baldwin Reservoir, and this is kind of a lull before the storm, really. It's not a hard bit of road, but it doesn't give you much respite either. And as I say, you're just bracing yourself ready for what is an absolutely ferocious climb, and I'll talk you through Inchbreck once we get to it. Most of the climb of Inchbreck was clear, but it did start to rain at about this point, and you can probably see the water starting to ping off my tyres and just starting to settle on the road a little bit. The road surface is starting to get damp. It started to rain at just the wrong time for me. The cloud often hangs over the mountain in the Isle of Man. Often it just skims the top. Sometimes it comes down lower. This day it came down lower, and so by the time we were getting towards the top of Inchbreck, we were in heavy cloud. I'd caught one other rider, and we caught 2 more who were actually riding the Man Fondo, and we really couldn't see them until we were right on top of them, and I mean like 10 metres away from them. It was extraordinarily dense, that cloud. So having said that you missed it all because my camera wasn't working, you wouldn't have seen a lot apart from white. But it did look quite dramatic. And then there's the descent of Thaltywell, and I took that very, very steadily, as you can imagine. Certainly at the top bit, because I couldn't see a thing. And I do know the descent fairly well now, but I wasn't going to take any chances with it. As I was going down the descent, I was aware there was a rider not that far behind me. And Gianni Epifani caught me on the run into Ramsey on the flat section, which was pretty handy actually, because we then rode bit and bit, and that was really the first time I'd been properly on a wheel since the bottom of Drewdale, I suppose, really. And so I really quite appreciated that, and he's a good hard worker, decent chap, Gianni. I don't know him well, but I know he's put an awful lot into cycling on the Isle of Man, and it was a pleasure to ride with him. I actually beat him in the sprint, which for me is pretty extraordinary. I'm sorry, Gianni. You have the dubious distinction of being one of a very few riders that I've beaten in a sprint. So yeah, it was a good day, long hard day. It's always a tough ride, this one, but brilliant race, made harder by the conditions. They may not look much, but those roads were very slippery, and in actual fact I understand that the 4 or 5 riders in the break all fell off on one junction, which I think was probably the junction right down furthest south. You're sort of almost into Port Erin, really. At that point you take a long fast descent and then swing left, and I believe the chasing group then did the same. They all fell off as well. So really quite extraordinary. The winner was a guy called Zach Walker, who you'll already have seen, and he actually fell off twice. I think he fell off actually, I believe, on that little short descend bit on Drewdale that I was wimping out on. So you know, at least I didn't come off. But he did a phenomenal ride to win it by as many minutes as he did. Sadly, Tyler Hannay, who you'll have noticed was missing from the results, abandoned after his crash. I've put a link up to his video here so you can hear about his exploits. Phenomenal rider. It was a real pity that we lost out there. So anyway, that's how it went. 21st place. My time was 4:27, which I was happy with. I was aiming for sub 4:30, so it was about right. I was only really missing out on the podium. It was a bit of a pain, and the other riders were all undoubtedly better than me. 2 phenomenal rides from Joe Bayfield and from Andrew Bruce. I mean, just incredible, really. I couldn't even begin to think about matching those. Truly impressive. Anyway, we're at that point now where we're just approaching Inchbreck, which really is a beast. I love it in a funny sort of way, but it's definitely a love-hate relationship even for me, and I love climbs. Here I'm crossing the sensor, as you can see, and from this point onwards it ramps right up. The race organisers reckon that the gradient is up to 27%, and the steepest bit is the low bit, but it doesn't actually relent a lot. It's not a climb that just has a little sharp bit and then stops. It really does keep it going for quite a long way, and it kicks again near the top actually. So you've got this hairpin. As you can see, it was quite greasy and damp at this point, and my main thoughts at this point, apart from keeping the bike moving, were that just around this corner somebody with a wonderful sense of humour decided that it would be a good place to install a cattle grid. And cattle grids are okay when you're able to hit them at a reasonable speed and they're dry. At the bottom of Inchbreck, when you've got pretty much the steepest bit of the climb, and it may not be 27%, but it's certainly over 20%, you aren't going very fast. So you know you've got to make a huge effort as you come up to it, and you also know that after that, you've got the hardest bit of the climb. It really is tough. So you're trying to lay out as many watts as you can, but at the same time knowing you've got to keep it going over the top. And then on top of that, on this particular day, as you can see, we've got rain as well, and you can see the rain had just started to actually come down at the point where I'm approaching the cattle grid, which is directly in front now. I mean, you couldn't have timed it better. So the road's just got a sort of slight greasy film, which any roadie will tell you is always the slipperiest. Anyway, it was with slightly bated breath, albeit I was actually having to breathe very hard, that I approached this cattle grid and lunged myself over it, and luckily I got through it. I don't know if anybody had problems on it, but I have seen people come a cropper on that grid. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, that's pretty much it, because my camera's about to run out. So I just want to close this really with a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved in the Gran Fondo, whether as an organiser, as a marshal, police, ambulance service, the whole lot. And I'll leave you one last photograph of me descending Tholty Well. Thanks very much for watching this, and well done for sticking it out to the end.